One of my favorite documentary series is the world's deadliest roads, and so I decided to make one for my trip to Juxtlahuaca. Now, before we get started on this trip, let's get oriented real quick. The trip begins in Mexico City and goes through Huajuapan de Leon and ends in Santiago, Juxtlahuaca. Now, along the Huajuapan to Juxtlahuaca route, there is a very interesting place. As you can see, there is a chapel right on the side of the road. And also further down, you will see that there is something called the Holy Cross. And so during this video, we will find out why they are located there.
Okay, so this is the beginning of my 10-hour bus ride from Mexico City to Huajuapan. And I don't know, maybe I'll arrive there around midnight.
I also want to apologize for this part. It is very boring and slow, but that is Mexico City traffic for you, and I want you guys to suffer as I did. Once out of the main city center, we're still not completely out of the woods. There's still a lot of urban landscape. And so as you can see, this is the slums of Mexico City. And it's very dull and boring to go through. It takes about an hour to get completely out from this place into something that is more interesting to look at. And so finally, after all the slums, I was happy to see something different. That's right, goats. And so this is a good omen for this trip. At first, I wanted to illustrate how the bus was going on the other lane while there were two solid yellow lines. But I also noticed that it looks like this guy is consoling a lady and they're in a hearse. So I'm not sure exactly what is happening here, but it is very creepy. I arrived in Huajuapan at 11 p.m. and decided to spend the night there and begin my journey the next morning. As we leave the city, the roads become smaller and the pavement is hit or miss. About 10 minutes from that city, we're at a point where the road is essentially dirt or gravel, and it gets worse from here. Here you can see the condition of the road. It used to be paved, but because of the traffic and the heavy trucks, such as this one, the pavement has deteriorated to a point where it's just gravel, rocks, and dirt. Either way, the cars still travel at full speed as if there wasn't a 2,000-foot drop on the other edge. It is a very dangerous condition, but the drivers have grown accustomed to this condition of the road and are not afraid to go 50 to 55 miles per hour in some points, which is around 80 kilometers per hour if I recall correctly. good news is that there is actually a large project going on to modernize this road, or at least make it uh, slightly wider and repave it. And so I just wanted to show that there is some progress being made. People are out there working very hard to improve this road. One interesting story I've heard is that the president of Mexico actually went and rode on this road because he wanted to see the condition of it. And so he made a big deal about driving through this road to Juxtlahuaca to say that the road can be improved, and that was one of the things that he was going to deliver. And so far, it seems like he's delivering what he said he would. At about the halfway point from Huajuapan to Juxtlahuaca, we are getting closer to a point that is called locally as El Espinazo del Diablo, which roughly translates to the devil's backbone. And so you can see on here there is a very large cliff, and there is a lot of history of accidents in that area. And so people have come to almost revere it and have a lot of respect for that area whenever they're driving through it. As of this year, this was the very first section that they improved. And so you can probably see that the pavement is very new. Uh, there's new, it's a little bit wider as well. But as a kid, this was a very dangerous spot. And I remember when I used to go on a bus that's very long, this was very scary. The bus would be traveling very slowly because of all the potholes, gravel, dirt, and also there would be landslides or rocks falling from above. And so it was very dangerous. And so as we go through this section, you will see that there are various memorials from the many accidents that have occurred here. Watch closely as we get closer to the very first one. Now, this one is a small one. I don't know the history behind it, but as far as I can remember, it has always been there. As we get to the peak of that turn, we come to the largest one, this one. Many years ago, there was a huge accident. An entire bus went over that cliff, and many people died. And up to a few years ago, you could still see the chassis of the bus below the cliff. I don't know if it's still there. I didn't see it this time, but it used to be very visible. Within the last 5 years, I remember seeing it. And if that wasn't enough, in this area right here, there is a tectonic fault line. And so whenever there's an earthquake, the road shifts or it breaks. And so it's just a very hazardous zone to be in or drive through. After this point, it's hard to explain, but usually I feel a huge sigh of relief. I feel like I've made it home safe. I'm not worried about the rest of the trip because it is not as dangerous as this area that we have just gone through. And so usually I'm wide awake while going through this area, but usually I can sneak in a nap before arriving in Juxtlahuaca after this. This is arriving in Juxtlahuaca. There is a small park, La Laguna Encantada, and it is very nice. in the summertime. Right now is in the dry season, so it looks very bleak. But when it's rainy season, it is very green. It looks very nice, and everyone goes there to do picnics and stuff. Now we are arriving in Juxtlahuaca. There are very few interesting things to see here other than the gas station. There are two gas stations in this town, one on either end. And so this is the first one. There is one on the other side as you're leaving the city. So only the hardcore Huxtlahuaca fans will be watching after this, I'm sure. But if you're interested, this is what Huxtlahuaca looks like as you're entering it. My village or my town is further away from Huxtlahuaca, and there is another video that I've posted that shows that trip from Huxtlahuaca to Santa Catarina, Norte.